Very good to
Our
see
boy.
you. Thank you for joining us today.
My boy here.
You've been talking about Mark Carney at recent events, saying that he accusing him of sneaky accounting, posting about him on social media. And you've also said that you would eliminate the deficit. When do you think you would be able to do that?
Well, it'll be in my platform, our fiscal plan to eliminate the Liberal deficit. It's funny that you ask about the deficit, because remember, 10 years ago, the Liberals promised there would only be 3 deficits, 3 small deficits that would boost growth, create investment, and help the middle class. What's been the result? Well, the 3 deficits became 9 deficits, and then those 9 deficits added $700 billion of debt and a lot of inflation. Investment went down. Our growth is the worst in the G7. And as for that famous middle class that was going to do better, what has happened to them is that 80% of them pay more income tax than they did before the Liberals. And not a single middle class family can afford a new home in any of our big cities. Now Mark Carney is repeating exactly the same promises that Justin Trudeau made. 3 small deficits that he says will be great for the middle class and growth. Well, the results will be exactly the same. It'll mean higher taxes, more inflation, bigger lineups at the food banks. That has been the result over the last 10 years of the Trudeau Liberals, and over the last 5 years, during which Carney has been Trudeau's economic advisor. So if you want an end to these Liberal deficits that have driven up the costs for middle-class families, you have to vote for a real change with a common-sense Conservative government, and we're the ones that will deliver it.
And this is my biggest thing with the current Liberals, is that even if Carney comes in and he's Liberal leader all of a sudden, there's still like so many of them that have gotten their hands dirty with Trudeau and getting involved in his crap. You know what I mean? So like, how do you wash your hands of how does everyone else just wash their hands of Trudeau so easily? That's what I think is going to be the real nail in the coffin for them, is why they won't be able to win a informed government, I think, is because it's going to be really hard to convince people that these same MPs that that were under Trudeau, you're going to be reelected again. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, a lot of them have stepped down. Don't get me wrong, a lot have stepped down. I just don't think it's enough. Like, almost like half that party has to step down, almost like the whole front bench. Like people like Philippe Champagne, they haven't stepped down. They're still running again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. Not all of them.
That's the thing I was saying too with like sorry, I lost my thought.
So if we're talking
Never
about
mind.
a timeline for you to get rid of the deficit, what would that be?
Well, the sooner the better. It's a Liberal deficit. So we have to get rid of Liberal waste. Under Trudeau-Carney, Liberals, they have, for example, added 100,000 public servants. I'll be reducing the number of bureaucrats. They've doubled the budget for corporate welfare. I will be cutting that. They doubled the budget for consultants. I'll be cutting that. I'll be cutting back on foreign aid to bring our money back home to Canada, and I'll impose a dollar-for-dollar law that requires my ministers find $1 of savings for every new dollar of spending.
The latest poll.
And that's what I'm saying, because every time, if he applies that principle, and people are saying, well, where's he getting the money for that? I'm like, well, if he applies that principle, he's going to make cuts elsewhere to supply them, to free up the money for that, right? And I feel like if he actually sticks to that, I think that's a huge thing to me of why I would like, because I want us to stop spending. I think our spending's out of control. And yeah, like Carney's at least got a better, we're going to invest it. You know, to me, it's like if he actually, let's just assume he's got the best intentions of the world and really wants to make Canada wealthier and invest the money, that's still a long game. And to me, I feel like we're going to get some results quicker.
Yeah, it takes a while to see the benefits.
There will be a lot of cuts to social support and stuff like that. And I don't know what else he'll be cutting 100%, but that's, I guess, where people are worried about voting him in. So like, well, he hasn't specified exactly every single cut he's going to make, just some of them, right? And I think it's the same thing when you have like Carney's advice that he gave them. It's like, you know, he needs to specify what advice he gave that they didn't follow and what advice he gave they did follow, that they, you know, just break it down more for people. Like, you want people to trust you, you got to be a little more transparent, in my opinion. The lack of transparency to me just means you have something to hide.
Polling shows that there is narrowing between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Why do you think that is? And do you think that has anything to do with moving away from our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and moving toward a new leader?
Well, I think Mr. Carney's a very sneaky guy. He has been Trudeau's
I just think of that picture of him holding his, he's like doing that weird face, like I don't even know how to do it. He's like doing that weird smile.
Sneaky
he does.
guy.
Like, dude, it's, I just thought of when he said that. I'm gonna find that picture.
Advisor for the last 5 years, and what has been the result? Housing costs have doubled. Lineups at food banks have doubled. The national debt has doubled. He has helped Justin
#1 result on Google. That's so funny.
Trudeau impose the carbon tax and pushed for that tax to go up even more. And now he plans a real sneaky trick. He's going to hide the carbon tax for 2 months right before the election so that it will not appear at the gas station. But after the election's over, he'll bring in a much bigger carbon tax. That's why the people keep.
Okay, so we're gonna play this picture because when he said
Sneaky Mark Carney.
this is what I thought of right here. Was this picture? Like, hey, I got your money. You know what I mean? Like, look how easy those small hands will slip in and out of your pocket, right? Like,
keep calling him carbon tax Carney.
Sorry, I missed what he said there. Let's rewind a second.
At the gas station. But after the election's over, he'll bring in a much bigger carbon tax. That's why the people keep calling him carbon tax Carney. And
to be fair, you're calling him carbon. You've started that here. You know you started that.
Yeah,
you know that was
you
your
know.
idea. Like, come on. Just say, you should have said, that's why I started calling him carbon tax Carney, and it caught on and everyone agrees with me. That's what you should have said. Not
Yeah, he's
that's
like,
why people are calling
saying
him
it.
this.
I don't know where it comes from, but people have been saying it. I keep on hearing it.
so if you want a
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know where
I
it's
like
coming.
that.
I don't know who's saying this stuff.
change from the disastrous Trudeau, Carney, Liberal policies of the last 10 years, you have to elect common sense conservatives who will axe the taxes for everyone for good, who will slash bureaucracy, consultants,
good.
corporate welfare, foreign aid to bring down debt, taxes, and inflation, who will take GST off new homes and remove bureaucracy so that we can build houses people can afford. That's what real change is, and only common sense conservatives can deliver it.
Let's talk about President Donald Trump. How would you handle him if, hypothetically speaking, you had a phone call with him today? What would that conversation be like? What would you say to him?
Back off. The one will never be the 51st
Step
state.
off.
We
Yeah.
will bear any burden.
Look how little hesitation there
Sounds
was
like
there. Little hesitation. You know, I agree
like
with
that.
Pierre. This made me like
Reminds
Pierre
me of
more.
the.
You know, like everyone else is like, oh, Pierre. It's like, you know,
No,
I
think
what he's
he's-
doing. I like this. I like this.
I agree too. I think he's been really strong on it. I think he's come off really good on this, in my opinion.
Like, I just feel like we need to be
Just
more
made me think of
level-headed.
the,
And
you know,
it's
in
like the idea of being
School of Rock,
yeah.
where they're like, he's like, what would you say if a bully was getting up in your face? And he's like, step off.
Oh yeah.
It's-
Yeah, no, that whole song he makes him do. But like, to me, I just don't understand how you can call yourself a patriot and say you love this country and everything it stands for, but then be glad with someone taking it over. You know what I mean? It's just
disrespects
weird.
it like they have
It's weird to
too.
me.
Yeah, they're
it's
being
like, who cares about our sovereignty and the flag? It's like, come
at
on,
the very
guys. Like,
least
really?
have some pride. This guy's insulting us, right? Like at least be a little bit
He's
like
making us what people think
sucks
Canadians
that-
are, you know, just pacifists, you know, just people who are just, what? Okay.
You know, people are like, yeah, we do suck. It's like, come on, man.
But we're not. Like we're actually a
Yeah,
pride.
exactly,
What's
yeah.
shown me the last 10 years is how not passive we are. Like we've become very active, I feel like, compared to most populations in the last 10 years.
And pay any price to protect our sovereignty. 2, we will respond to tariffs with retaliation, and I will use the dollars raised for those tariffs to save jobs and companies that are directly affected by a trade war, but also cut taxes for workers and businesses so that we can bring home the investment Liberals have driven south of the border. We need to be strong here at home. Under Carney, you know, he supported Trudeau's decision to block pipelines and resource jobs in Canada while he invested in American coal and moved his headquarters.
Did he say Trudeau supported Carney's decision?
Liberals have driven south of the border. We need to be strong here at home. Under Carney, you know, he supported Trudeau's decision to block pipelines and resource jobs in Canada while he invested in American coal.
I thought he
and
said it
moved
the
his
other way. I
headquarters
was like,
from
holy.
Canada to New York City, just like Trump wanted. We don't need a prime minister who's going to put America's economy first, as Carney did. We need a prime minister who will put Canada first. That means passing a big, bold, patriotic, bring it home tax cut on work, investment, home building, energy, making stuff in Canada so we can bring back that investment and become a self-reliant country that rewards its companies for paying high wages, that produces its own resources and trades across Canada. That's what we're going to do when I'm Prime Minister, and that will make us strong to stare down Trump and any of the threats he puts forward.
For months, you've said that Canada is broken. Now, in the wake of the tariff threats, of the threat of becoming the 51st state, do you still think that Canada is broken?
I think the Liberals have broken everything. They broke our housing market by doubling housing costs. They broke in the household budgets by raising carbon taxes and income taxes, with twice as many people lined up at food banks as there were before.
They've increased hate
Trudeau-Carney
crimes
Liberals.
too. Remember that one?
They've broken our criminal justice system with catch and release that has allowed
I'm ready to pounce on Pierre.
criminals to rampage through our streets, gun crime having doubled. They've broken families with the fentanyl crisis that they unleashed by legalizing hard drugs and leaving our borders open. We have more people dead of fentanyl after a decade of the Liberals than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. So they broke a lot of things, and it is patriotic.
Just pause for a sec too. Like I don't dislike Pierre as a person. I think he's an earnest guy. He's the most honest out of the three right now, for sure. I just, yeah, like, I mean, it's not really a dig at him that I would pick Carney over him. Like I said, I would pick him over Trudeau if it was just between those two. And if I could decide it on my own, I would hit that Pierre button so fast. You know, like it's not like I don't hate him.
Well, and I don't understand why everyone's saying, like, look what Pierre's doing. Like, all these people who are just saying it'd be the end of democracy if the Liberals got in for another term are talking about voting for the People's Party instead and splitting the vote further because Pierre is not radical enough for them. It's like, you're just going to, like, you're literally doing the opposite of what you're like. How is that helpful? You know what I mean? How is
you're
that gonna
being
help
the
us?
NDP right now. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, to a degree. It's just, I don't know. I just don't understand why people are so emotional and quick to just jump on that boat. It's just, to me, insane. Like, it's like, to me, if you're a true conservative, are you actually, you know, ideologically aligned with conservatism, then I feel like you're going to like this conservative government. If you're someone who just wants to be radical and wants radical change and, you know, the same kind of change that Trump's doing in the States right now, I feel like you wouldn't want him anymore. And I feel like those if that group breaks off and goes and supports the People's Party, that's just going to split the vote for Pierre and then probably allow the Liberals to come right in a minority government. It's potentially possible, in my opinion.
To point out what is broken so that you can fix it. I mean, Liberals they're trying to gaslight Canadians into saying, if you point out any of the problems.
Well, I would like to know what Mark Carney would say.
You're saying they want me to get it on paper.
What would Mark Carney say about the online harms bill? Because the sponsor of the online harms bill is now not seeking re-election, right? That was Arif Virani. So from what I understand, with the prorogation and him stepping down, every bill that he sponsored.
That'd be an interesting thing for
it's gone.
Pierre to bring up at some point too, right? Like, I feel like it's also focused on the tariffs now. It's really stolen all the wind out of all the other conversations that we could be having, right? I think that, yeah, Trump's just really screwed this whole like he's stuck a wrench in everything, right? Like, it was going to go one way and now it's going a completely different direction. He's completely changed the dynamic of it.
He's given the Liberals something to battle. And I don't think they calculated the lack of popular support there would be for that rhetoric. And I don't think, and I really don't think any Canadian is happy about that idea. Like, you know, the thing is like, yeah, we would end up becoming just resource stripped. Like, that's what they want. They want our resources. That doesn't mean, oh, we're going to become American citizens. Yeah. Like, it'll probably be like, it'd probably be pretty messy. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be a really messy situation. Like, I've been watching a show called Nightfall on Netflix last night.
Hey, have a good one, Joe.
Watching it. All right. See you later, Joe. Say happy birthday to the wife.
Let your wife. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
It's I was watching the show Nightfall. It's about the Knights Templar and stuff, right? And it was a lot of political stuff in there. And it's really interesting to see how a lot of the societal issues today, apparently they were dealing with over 1,000 years ago, like with the Jews, with Christian, with just like all the stuff, like people burning churches. Like, this is stuff that's been going on for forever, right? I think it's just now with the internet, we're reaching this age where everyone's more aware of these stories than they would be. So you're aware of 80 different churches being burned across Canada rather than just, you know, the 4 in your local area or something. And that's a high number, but you know what I mean, right? Like, your information would be more localized.
I think that the reason that those church burnings were even happening was due to like kind of a story that got away from itself as well, right? It was like retaliation for the mass graves that they never actually discovered the bodies for, right? And I'm not trying to.
And that's why everyone
I'll
speculates
admit,
with that, because there was
the reason that everybody was so quick to believe that stuff is because things like that, not exactly the way that it was presented by some people, but things like that were kind of happening, right? There wasn't a lot of regard given
things
to
like this have been happening
healthcare for those kids,
forever,
right?
And
there was a lot of them did die of diseases and stuff while they were living there.
horribly treated.
A lot of them did leave and never came back to see their parents again, right? Like that did happen.
A lot of witness testimony on record about those schools and what happened there, right? And it was more of a lot of disappearances. There's a lot of weird situations going on and a lot of horrible treatment happening there, right? And I think that's why I get frustrated when people argue that one part of the story. They act like you're arguing against the whole thing and you're in favor of it all. But it's like, no, I'm just questioning one thing that was presented to me. I thought that was allowed, you know, on both sides of the aisle. You guys, everyone claims to be pro-freedom and freedom of speech, but when it comes to actually putting their money where their mouth is, a lot of people are really quick to pull their hand back and be like, no, this is... You know, actually, I changed my mind. It's hard because it's hard. It's hard to actually have free speech. You know what I mean? It's not easy. It doesn't make society easier.
It's the same thing that I argue with gun rights, right? Like I'm a pro-gun.
I think
rights
for the
person.
better, though. I gotta state that. I think it's for the better.
Yeah, no, me too. Well, that's what I'm saying is I would always argue in favor of both free speech and for gun rights, but I recognize that there are downfalls to it, right? There's weaknesses that are presented there. The reason that China and Russia and Iran are able to mess with our they're able to put propaganda out here so easily is because of our free speech, right? We can't do that to Russia or Iran or China because they don't have free speech there. You can't just go in there and pretend to be a Chinese person on Twitter and write a whole bunch of posts giving them misinformation about their government because there's no way to do that there, right? They can only do that to their own citizens. They don't let other governments do stuff like that there.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that that's the case, right? Like these are the things that we got to be aware of.
The wisest words of, I guess it was, I want to say Uncle Ben, but it wasn't Stanley. With great power comes great responsibility. You know what I mean? And freedom of speech is a great power, and it comes with a great responsibility. But that is not up for the government to force that responsibility on us. We, as the people, have to take our own responsibility and take up that mantle and fight the fight. You know what I mean? Like it's just that's
protect our rights, and
you know what I mean. If you
do our best to counter for the things that are weaknesses, right? Like,
so Saul is essentially
be aware of
censorship. Okay, Rob, that's exactly what
I don't know how you're. That's not at all what I said. I just said I'm pro free speech.
It's all about the one
downsides to free speech. Yeah.
Problems that they caused after 10 years in power. You're unpatriotic. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way.
Patriotism. I gotta rewind that. We paused for too long. Sorry, guys.
Like Canadians into saying, if you point out any of the problems that they caused after 10 years in power, you're unpatriotic. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Patriotism is about having an honest conversation about the enormous damage the Liberals did to this country. And by the way, I won't take any lessons on patriotism from Mark Carney, who took jobs.
Dude, this is why he's going to crush people in the debates. Like, this is why. Like, how well he handles a tough question. You know what I mean?
Money out of Canada to put them in the States, in China.
He's good at controlling a conversation.
East. I won't take any lessons from the Liberals on patriotism after they have been lowering our flag.
And that's a good line to give back to them too.
Yeah, and they have been lowering. You know, he's. You know, I want to just highlight this because he's right on this.
Liberals on patriotism after they have been lowering our flag and putting down our history for the last 10 years. Conservatives will put Canada first, and that means fixing what Liberals broke.
We are a week away from our own election here in Ontario, where we choose our new
Doug Ford's polling pretty high right now in that, by the way, guys.
Premier, and it shows that Doug Ford, leader of the Progressive Conservatives, has a healthy lead. What's your working relationship like with him, and who do you endorse if you endorse anyone?
Well, my working relationship is great with all the premiers. I'll work with anybody who will put Canada first. Anyone of any party who's prepared to work together, for example, to take taxes off home building. I'm going to go to all the premiers and say, look, I'm going to take the GST off new homes.
It'd be good if he had somebody to bring up that he would be willing to work with. Be like, if he was to say, hey, like, I really agree with Wob Canoe or whoever here, or like, it's unlikely to be David Eby.
He's probably going to
just say like a policy. He will have to work with them, but I'm just saying if he could come up with a line like that just to spit out, because he has a working relationship with all these premiers too. That's an advantage he has on Mark Carney.
Canoe made that comment about cross-fitting with Pierre Poilievre. he was asked in a press conference about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'd be willing to sit down with anyone who wants me to sit down with them." Like that's what he basically
Oh,
said.
that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah.
those homes. That would save over $100,000 for a young family trying to buy a home. Then let's pressure the municipalities to cut their home building taxes. I'll say to them, look, let's knock down interprovincial
It's CP24. They're a conservative outlet, Northwest.
trade barriers. I'll give you a bonus every time you remove a barrier to interprovincial trade so that we can start trading between Canadians rather than giving all our goods to the Americans. I'll work with anybody on my plan to bring in a blue seal, for example, a blue seal for immigrant doctors and nurses that is recognized across Canada so that the doctors that are driving taxis in Canada can actually take a test, prove they're qualified, and get licensed anywhere in the country. So no matter who Ontarians choose or other provinces choose as their premier, I'll always work with
That's a good thing to bring
that
up.
person to put our country first.
Pierre, thank you so much for being here, for making the time for us. We appreciate you being here. And
Okay. You know, to what Autumn's saying in the chat about Carney just being planted. Well, even if that's the case, he's the only one saying he's going to call an election as soon as he takes office. So that to me says something. If he's going to try and drag out the whole situation and, you know, keep this, just keep the House of Commons from not functioning, keep our government from getting nowhere, like I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's smart enough to know that would not go over very well publicly. I don't think it'd be a very popular choice. I think the most popular choice for everybody right now in all of Canada, I think for the first time, is an election. I think everybody wants it, left and right, everybody. And I think there was a time when everyone hated Trudeau, but not everyone truly wanted an election. And that was kind of crazy,
Yeah.
is that they hated Trudeau, but they hated Poilievre more somehow. So, you know, talk about Poilievre derangement syndrome. Like, honestly, like some people have they know nothing about him, and they're just like, you can believe me, he got sentenced. It's going to be horrible. It's just like, really, like, how is it going to be horrible? Tell me, what is he going to do that is going to be worse than what this Liberal government's done? And people couldn't answer that question before, right? And now, unfortunately, Mark Carney's given those people somewhat of an answer to that question, right? Is that, well, now it's not that he's better than Trudeau, it's that Mark Carney's better than Poilievre. So it's like, now this whole thing is just, the landscape is shifting dramatically right now. And the liberal leadership race concluding will, I think, start this next era of Canadian politics. You know, PDS is already taken. I don't even know what that means, but I don't even want to know.
Pierre derangement syndrome is what he's talking about.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, you know, as Trump's #1 hater, it was kind of annoying for me to hear people compare Pierre Poilievre to Trump, because I was like, no, dude, like,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
not only this is triggering me on the other end here, I just think he's so much worse. Like, this guy is not even close to that level of disregard for things, right? But I don't know.
I was gonna say, when it comes down to, Autumn is saying, no justice. He was just asked and he wouldn't answer about Mark Carney calling an election. Well, the thing is, he didn't answer. You're right. He did not answer, but he didn't say he wouldn't either. That's the thing, right? And in politics, in politics, you know, when you have someone take a stance like he did, where he gave a non-answer about it, and then you have leaked memos coming out about an election coming up March 10th, you have him shooting up in the polls, he'd be an idiot not to call an election, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
I think so.
I
just think
you are so lucky that somehow, just given the current geopolitical situation, you're able to be this high in the polls right now, Mark Carney. Like, I think
the other thing too is that the only thing I could see him doing before calling an election is if there was some kind of bipartisan thing they wanted to pass regarding the tariffs with the Conservatives. I would have to see, like, that would have to be something that he's like approaching Poilievre with. He's like, hey, we all want to get this done right now. Let's just do this, and then we'll go straight for the polls. Like, right after that, I'd be okay with that. But anything past that, I think, like, if he's going to try to cling on to things, I would vote for Poilievre just on that alone. Like, I don't think that there's any time to be wasting.
Honestly, I think that the people who support Trump are becoming like a fringe minority in Canada, given the recent rhetoric. Like, honestly, I don't know many people who like him anymore. Like, a lot of people I know,
nice choice of words there,
very gung ho over him, have just completely flipped. Like, a lot.
I feel like our chat too. I mean, we've still got a few people who are still a fan, but there's definitely been a change. Like, it wasn't as it's not as unanimous anymore.
Anyways, on that note, I guess we'll be tuning out. So thanks a lot, guys. See you later. Please like and subscribe. Really appreciate your support. If you're a long-term watcher and you're not subscribed, which apparently we have a lot of, the current statistics, we have like over 10,000 people that watch us regularly, but we only have 2,700 subscribers. So if you guys could please subscribe, really help us out. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one.